The president's performance sending up huge red flags in the Democratic Party and the media. Take a look at this headline from Politico that says Biden is toast.
Brooke Singman has more on that. An exclusive reaction from a Democrat strategist. Hi, Brooke.
Hey, guys. Yeah, former President Trump came out swinging, but President Biden stumbled through his talking points. Watch.
40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. It's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
For what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
A Democratic strategist telling me, quote, this was a disappointing performance for the president, but at the end of the day, this election was always going to be close and won't be won or lost in one night. It's going to take time and effort for Biden to regain some of what he lost tonight. But on the flip side, there's also a lot of time for Trump to continue reminding voters that he's a chaotic, convicted felon who overturned Roe. That was a Democratic strategist there. And the media just as unsettled. Listen.
There's a real concern here tonight that there's been some real damage done that cannot be undone.
There is no two ways about it. That was not a good debate for Joe Biden.
That was painful. He didn't do well at all. He did not do well at all. I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to see him consider taking a different course now.
There's a reason that FDR was never shown in his wheelchair. There's a reason that John F. Kennedy pretended to be a vigorous man when he was certainly not. You can't become president again when America looks at you and that avatar to them looks broken.
If you're the Biden campaign, I think you wish that this night will be remembered in reverse.
But Vice President Kamala Harris is defending the president.
First of all, what we saw tonight is the president making a very clear contrast with Donald Trump on all of the issues that matter to the American people. Yes, there was a slow start, but it was a strong finish.
The next debate will be hosted by ABC and is expected to take place on September 10th.
Okay, all right. Here we go. Back in the saddle today. Did you feel the vibe shift? Did you feel the energy shift? Has all of our work come to fruition? And are we gonna win, baby? Win, baby. Oh, what a great, beautiful Friday morning. It is June 28th, 2024. We are live early this morning because we have a stacked show. Donald Trump's press secretary is going to be on the show. Some of Donald Trump's closest advisors, some of the smartest strategists in the entire Republican Party and the entire party writ large, the entire political ecosystem writ large, are going to be joining us. And so we decided to go live early. We were live at 1 a.m. last night, through 1 a.m. last night. And what an incredible day. What an amazing moment. What a time to be alive. And what a brutal night for Joe Biden. Joe Biden collapses completely on his face, fills his diapers, spills his applesauce, yanks out his pocket catheter, and has a nightmare to remember. There's no other way to say it. It's over. It's done. I'm not trying to give you hopium or copium. We still got to work like hell to make sure that Joe Biden is humiliated in November, but everybody's running for the hills now. And the question is, who the hell has been running the country? And we'll get to all that in just a second. Corporate media does call for Joe Biden to be replaced right on cue. Why are they all saying the same thing at the same time? It's a little strange. That makes me a bit nervous. How did the corporate media flip on Joe Biden so quickly? Oh, baby. And joining the show again will be Kash Patel, Caroline Levitt, Darren Beatty, Charlie Spearing. We have like this unbelievable stacked show. Who knows who else could hop on here? We're going to rock and roll. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what we do here on The Benny Show. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. So, yeah, we're going to be traveling to the Republican convention. We're going to have a awesome partnership with Patriot Mobile when we are up at the Republican convention. And we encourage you to hop on the Patriot Mobile network to tune in to all of the unbelievable breaking news. And we think there's going to be so much breaking news over the next couple of months. We don't think, we know for a fact. So, ladies and gentlemen, get on there and make sure that you are funding a mobile phone site that doesn't fund the left. The only Christian conservative mobile telephone site in the country. And they're so solid. They work so well, and they help us out when we are on the road. And we're going to be at the GOP convention again. We're going to be at the GOP convention. It's all going to be powered by Patriot Mobile. Go to patriotmobile.com today. patriotmobile.com today/Benny. patriotmobile.com/Benny. Call 972-PATRIOT. Get free activation today with the offer code Benny. Okay, free activation today. Offer code Benny. All right. So about last night. I want to start by saying this, and I think we've maybe even talked too much about it. But here are the two choices that we were left with last night. And there were only going to be two options. Okay. One, YouTube was going to allow CNN to strike all of our channels if you broadcast the debate live. That's why you saw people on the far left, like Midas Touch and Young Turks, people in the center, like Breaking Points, or people on the right, like Charlie Kirk and Megyn Kelly, the Daily Wire guys, The Blaze, all these people, like they weren't broadcasting the debate live because CNN threatened everybody and sent out like really mean and nasty messages, and then did so at sort of the behest of YouTube. And so that is why we didn't stream the debate live last night. In retrospect, having seen people who decided to buck the trend and call CNN's bluff, we should have streamed the debate live. You never know. You don't know in these things. And we're in uncharted territory because of the dicks at CNN, who they are complete and total dicks at CNN. They wouldn't even let White House correspondents into the debate hall. They wouldn't let the pool reporters into the debate hall. They wouldn't let a pool feed into the debate hall. They were being pricks. And so you never know how these things are going to shake out. I am angry that we didn't stream the debate live. I feel like we would have just been rolling all night. It was really, really important. And I think we're going to be wiser the next time that we make this decision. I mean, we're relatively new to this in the entire landscape. And so we're going to be wiser, although this is a choice that many creators wrestled with. But many of the, as far as we know, none of the streams were ripped down last night, which was our biggest fear. Ultimately, the goal, the eternal goal of this show is to serve you, the audience. That is the perpetual and eternal goal. It's to serve you with news, commentary, entertainment, and the best that we can possibly provide. And so last night there was a huge pressure campaign on a ton of creators, and a ton of us said, "All right, geez, like you're gonna destroy our ability to reach our audiences by penalizing us. So we're gonna like play ball. No more. Gloves off. No more. I'll never do that again. Never do it again. No. I'll call their bluff. We're done. We were live last night for an hour and a half after the debate, but we should have been live during the debate. That was going to be the two. It was either going to be that, right? So it was either Paper Tiger, or they were going to strike all the channels while they were live, destroy all their audiences, rip them all down offline, penalize the channels so that they can't stream live again. There's like penalties for these things. So it was going to go one way or the other. But I'm going to just be honest with you, as I've been honest with you this entire time. I've told you everything. And that's why we weren't live last night, along with the vast majority of other streamers, because CNN had this big, giant, flipping, threatening campaign. It's really pissed me off. I'm really angry about it. I'm personally upset about it. So we did our best last night, went live, and we'll never do that again. Never. We learned our lesson, and we're gonna rock and roll. We'll probably be live this afternoon for Donald Trump's first rally after the debate last night. And we intend on fully putting our shoulder to the wheel, admitting to you when we, talking through our decision, admitting when we can do something better. And this is going to be the decision we make from now on. That this is it. We're just going to let it rip. The country's too important. This conversation is too important. This community's too important. Okay. So there we are. What did transpire last night? Well, there's really like no way. There's really no other way to talk about it other than the end of Joe Biden forever. There's no. We'll play the clips, but I'd like to play you just like reflexively the reaction of the media, because this is this is the most remarkable thing from what actually transpired last night. Joe Biden walks into a bar, gets drunk off his ass, slurs his words, stumbling around, picks a fight, okay, with a big dude at the bar, all right, with coiffed hair. And he turns to see if his boys are behind him, the media, and they've all abandoned him or have decided to fight him. That's what happened last night. Joe Biden has been completely and totally, utterly abandoned by the people who got him here, by his boys, by his buddies, okay? He's such an embarrassment that not even the New York Times, here we go, New York Times, Carolyn Levitt, by the way, who will be on the show in just a moment, sending this out. President Biden is my friend. He must bow out of the race. Biden cannot go on like this. I'm hearing high anxiety from Democrats over Biden's debate performance. President Biden, it's time to drop out. This is the New York Times. This is what the New York Times said as far as who won. Red is Trump, blue is Biden. Who won last night? Oh my goodness. Look at these. Oh, we don't know what the toss-up. It's like an intelligence test, actually. Politico, Biden's toast. Politico, Biden's toast. Look at the front of Politico here. The movement to convince Biden not to run is real. This is the front of Politico. A turning point. U.S. allies wince at Biden debate performance. Here's how Democrats could replace Biden. These are all the headlines. The worst debate performance in American history. That's what they're saying. The worst debate performance in American history. It's incredible. Despite spewing lies, Trump came off looking better than Biden. Remarkable. Daily Mail shows Trump winning by 36 points. Daily Mail. Deluded to the end. Biden refuses to drop out, even commits to a second debate after train wreck. Oh, man. Hollywood celebs abandon Joe Biden. Desperate Dems may knife Biden after the fumbling, mumbling, full-blown debate car crash. Van Jones reveals moment that Biden lost the debate. Incredible. Bizarre gaffe that sealed Biden's fate. His dirty tactics exposed. Just ripping, savaging Joe Biden. Democrats are now openly calling for Harry Carey. Democrats saying that they'd rather jump off a bridge. Do we have this clip? I'm sure we have this clip in the script. Can we pop this one up for the people? Saying they'd rather jump off a bridge than watch Joe Biden debate. It's remarkable. Send it.
He said that when that happened, the entire room was just completely silent and in shock, and that this member's own reaction was that he wanted to jump off of a bridge.
Okay, finally. Trump indicted for murdering elderly man on CNN. This is this is what Donald Trump posted on his Instagram. Okay, maybe an indictment that would actually stick. Here we go. Donald Trump posting this on Instagram, getting 600,000 likes. Trump indicted for murdering elderly man. Donald Trump actually posted it. A just remarkable moment. The betting odds here, also, ladies and gentlemen, just devastating. Jumping down into the script here, Klein. Okay, so betting odds. Look at this. It looks like we've gone meme stock in 2024. We've now officially gone meme stock. Look at the lines. Look at Joe Biden. This has gotten worse since I last checked it. Check out Joe Biden here. Joe Biden looks like Enron stock. Joe Biden looks like Disney stock. This is so unbelievably embarrassing. Look at that collapse. How do you recover from that? You don't. You can't. It's not possible. You can't recover. Donald Trump posting that he beat and indicted for murdering an elderly man. And he didn't even have to really do anything, technically. Donald Trump had two really, really good responses that we loved, but Donald Trump really just had to like kind of sit back and let Biden do the full damage. I mean, you were watching along with me. This was one of my favorites. Joe Biden saying that he's defeated Medicare.
All those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on.
Okay, so he did defeat Medicare. Great job, man. Good. That was like his first answer, by the way. And it just gets worse from there. I want to take a moment here, obviously, to just like play you some of these responses, but the Democrat Party is in shambles. What are they going to do? Like, truly, what are they going to do? Let's just like game theory this for a second, because we're gonna play you all the clips, and they're really funny. And we'll play you the Trump ad. Do we have the Trump ad now? Trump released an ad. Trump released an ad last night at 2 a.m. in the morning, and it's a banger. It doesn't include Donald Trump saying a single word. This is just, he didn't need to. It doesn't include Trump saying a single word, okay? But I want to cut to the quick here, just really quickly, just because I've been thinking about this. What did we see last night? Like, what did we see last night? And then we'll play you the Trump ad. This Trump ad's amazing. What did we see? Like, it really makes you wonder. One, how do they get rid of Joe Biden? They have no good options. You know, these people hate democracy because they knew this was the state of Joe Biden, and then they pushed him past June 8th, which was the last Democrat primaries. And so they knew that Joe Biden was infirmed. They knew this. We knew this, obviously. But they pushed him to the point where thousands of DNC delegates voted for him because they lied about Joe Biden's mental state, even though that was really hard and anybody paying attention would have known. But the Democrat primary voter lives inside of these hermetically sealed bubbles that have been sealed up by CNN and MSNBC. And so they've been lied to. The true hell should be brought down on the house of the media, who has been propping up Joe Biden and then turned on a dime and knifed him last night, all in unison. Incredible. Such herd animals, such spooked little herd animals, but it doesn't matter. What can they do? Those delegates are committed to Joe Biden. What are they going to, like, what could possibly happen? So they convinced Joe Biden to drop out. What happens next? Kamala Harris takes over. She polls worse against Donald Trump than Joe Biden does. That's the world's ending nightmare. But then you lose by 200 electoral votes. You're going to put in Gavin Newsom? So let's say you get Kamala Harris to drop out. Then what? You put in Gavin Newsom? Gavin Newsom will not win a single swing state. There's not a single voter in Wisconsin or Michigan who would be convinced to vote for Gavin Newsom. Trust me. I know these people. I'm from that area. The swing states are not going to vote for Gavin Newsom. Arizona's not going to vote for Gavin Newsom. Okay? Half the population of Arizona are people who escaped Gavin Newsom. Guy's not ready. Maybe someday he'll run for president. But I think like maybe there was a showdown, right, with Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis for a presidential bout in the future, years in the future. Who knows? You remember they did that debate on Fox, but they're not going to vote for Kevin Newsom. So what's the Democrat Party going to do? They have to convince Joe and Kamala to both drop out. And then what do they have left? Hillary? Really? You're going to try that again? Michelle Obama? Boy, like you are not cooking with a dozen eggs here. This is not going to work out well for you. You have a convention in like 30 days. GOP convention is like 2 weeks. Democrat convention is right after that. What is your plan? And then most importantly, like who, and this is like the bigger question. All right. So there's no good plan. There is no plan. There's no good plan to swap out Biden. Joe Biden's saying this morning he's going to stay in, but then take a step back. Like the guy you saw last night, this guy's been running the country? No, he hasn't. No. Think about America as like a big corporation, a Fortune 500 company. And you're a stockholder, shareholder, you sit on the board of directors, and you come in and you see a CEO like Joe Biden. And the CEO is like geeked out of his mind, can't talk. He's just been like the old guy who's been propped into the position. You're like, wait a second, who's actually running this company? And you realize there's all these like nasty little vice presidents all over the company who've been embezzling. And that's actually been what's been happening. You have all these little Jake Sullivans everywhere and Anthony Blinkens who are really running everything. It's like the Politburo in the Soviet Union. None of these guys are actually elected. And Joe Biden is completely cooked. And so the entire operation has been run by like these guys who are just like embezzling for themselves. It's a horrible state. I mean, the country, America itself, like Western civilization, the fact that this can even happen says so much. It is such a depressing treatise on how we govern ourselves, our system of government. It is a horrible rebuke that these people can go in, this Marxist facade can go in and run this Manchurian candidate who can't get English words out of his face hole yesterday. And then that's how they run the country? Just by committee? Just a bunch of people like embezzling from the company left and right, which is what you've seen? Like payoffs to all their friends, just passing these massive bills. Oh, it sickens the soul. It sickens the soul. Any Republican who dared vote for these people, who voted for these spending packages to give trillions of dollars to these guys who just embezzle. Joe Biden completely and totally geeked out of his mind. Yeah, I mean, what a depressing state. But that is the state. State of play is they're all going to talk about swapping Joe Biden. For what? How? Tell me you're going to convince this guy. You're going to convince this guy. Here's the Trump ad. Here's the Trump ad that's breaking the internet right now. Trump released this ad, not a single word spoken by Donald Trump. An entire ad of Joe Biden's words. Let's go.
Both, however, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare, we're trying to provide housing for Black Americans. The impact on the choice, the idea that they're gonna. I'm proposing that everybody the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I've not raised the cost of Social Security for anybody. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. And wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it stopped. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
What else do you need? What else do you need? What else can you possibly put out from last night? We could show you clip after clip after clip. There's one more clip I want to show you. Everything else, was actually truncated perfectly into that ad. Joe Biden said that there is a huge problem in America with women being raped by their sisters. That's a real thing. You can't take it back. No takesy backsies. No Uno reverse. This is something that Joe Biden said. Can anybody, any scholar, any fact checker, anyone who is a Joe Biden supporter, can any reporters tell me exactly what Joe Biden meant by, is this true? Anyone? Anyone?
But here's the deal. There's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters.
There's a bunch of people that are being raped by their sisters. A bunch of women that are being raped by their sisters, says Joe Biden. Says the resident of the White House. Donald Trump with the perfect comeback. Final clip we'll play, and then we get to reactions here. And we get some breaking news here that's unbelievable out of the Supreme Court. Donald Trump with the perfect comeback.
That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look.
Donald Trump held back so beautifully last night. We heard from Laura Trump last night on our program, pre-debate coverage. Laura Trump said he's going to be calm, he's going to be cool, he's going to be collected, and he's going to be presidential. And that is the Trump that showed up and delivered. It was all in the body language. Like one man was in control and one man was like drooling and geeked just completely out of his mind. Why did Joe Biden sit like this the entire time? Did you notice this? What's going on? Dude. Every time there was a split screen, do we have a screen? Do we have like a screenshot of this? Every time there was a split screen, it was Joe Biden going like this. Mouth open, tongue out, mouth agape. I can't even do this with my mouth. Like sort of like a cartoon character is drooling. What, dude, bro, what were you on, man? What is that? Donald Trump, of course, mewing. Donald Trump with the alpha, With the alpha, he did the Chad meme. Look at this, man. New York Times writers saying, I wish that Joe Biden would reflect on this performance and announce his decision to withdraw from the race. Yeah, all right. A White House reporter for Fox News, Jackie Heinrich, very well-connected Democrat, tells me the House and the Senate are the GOP's for now. They're surrendering. Everyone is freaking out. Joe Biden needs to go. They have no way to replace him unless Joe Biden agrees to be replaced. It's not going to work. What did Nate Silver have to say? Ooh, baby. Nate Silver. Flames. Joe Biden should drop out. This is the darling of the left. Ben Rhodes. This is very important. Ben Rhodes is Mr. Barack Obama, okay? A spokesperson for Barack Obama, effectively. Ben Rhodes, the master craftsman of all of Barack Obama's foreign policy. The guy who's crying on election night. Remember the guy sobbing after Hillary Clinton lost? Telling people they didn't see what they saw is not a way to respond to this. Uh-oh. The knives are out, baby. The knives are officially out. Finally, Andrew Yang, really quick. Andrew Yang ran against Joe Biden and debated against Joe Biden and says, hey, guys, we should nominate someone else before it's too late. Ooh, man. Okay. Real quick here. I cannot help myself. We got to go to we have so many reactions. We got to go to the most brutal ones. All right, here we go. How about CNN rolling out their fact checker for the first time in 3 years? He must have been in solitary confinement in Guantanamo Bay. They dusted him off, put him in a suit, got him out of his shackles, and they said, okay, you are now free to fact check Joe Biden. And it suddenly CNN finds a machine gun efficiency and urgency to fact check Joe Biden. Listen to the number of lies that this guy knocks down in 49 seconds. Go.
some of them. He said he's the only president in a while who didn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world. Troops have, of course, died on his watch. He said he's put in a $15 per shot cap on insulin and Medicare. It's a $35 a month cap. He said it's a $200 cap on overall drug spending in Medicare. It's $2,000 a year. He said the border now has fewer crossings than when Trump was in office. That's generally not true. He said, or at least strongly suggested, unemployment was at 15% when he took office. It was actually 6.4. He said Trump wants to get rid of Social Security. Trump doesn't. He said billionaires pay 8.2% in taxes. It's much higher. He said Trump told Americans to inject bleach amid COVID. We know Trump made foolish comments about scientists studying disinfectant injection, but didn't frame it as advice to people. And Biden said the Border Patrol endorsed him. No, its union supported the border bill he supported, never endorsed him himself.
Yeah, actually, the Border Patrol came up with a absolute banger of a tweet. Can we grab that? I'm not sure if we have that in the script. Border Patrol live said, no, we do not endorse Joe Biden. We never will endorse Joe Biden. Whew, baby. Hot off the presses. Okay, so we have so many meltdowns to play. One final one. You're going to love this one. One final one. You're going to love it. Cenk, who is a big-time progressive YouTuber, arguably the most progressive YouTuber. Do we have the Border Patrol thing? Can we toss that up? To be clear, we will never, ever endorse Joe Biden. It's pretty amazing. This thing nuked, by the way. Is that 116,000 retweets? 118? Come on, boy. We're cooking. Tired of winning yet? Cenk having the meltdown of all meltdowns. It's so entertaining. He's a huge progressive YouTuber. Runs the biggest progressive YouTube channel, if you're not familiar, the Young Turks. And yeah, he was reaching for the meds last night.
And the whole time the split screen is killing Biden.
Yep.
Because he's got his mouth open, he looks confused, doesn't know where he is. He's lost his train of thought at least twice in like disastrous shape. Those are gonna be played 1 billion times in viral video after viral video. This is an epic disaster. I see people online saying, well, okay, that answer wasn't so bad. No, it doesn't. Any particular answer doesn't matter at all. This thing is over. He looks like he's barely surviving. I don't mean the debate, I mean life. And so there's no person that has a single brain cell left in their head who thinks that Joe Biden is the best candidate to take on Donald Trump. You would have to be even crazier than Donald Trump to think that. This thing is over. I'll guarantee you this. I would bet show me a Democratic politician and I will bet them any amount of money that Joe Biden's going to lose this election if he's the candidate. It's a guaranteed loss.
Guaranteed loss. It's over. He's cooked. And now, baby, we start cooking. We're cooking right now. Cooking with Cash. Actually, we should totally launch that series. We should absolutely start a homemaker show called Cooking with Cash Patel. Ladies and gentlemen, Cash Patel joins the program now to talk about all of the recent happenings and some breaking news out of the Supreme Court. Yo, Cash, sorry to just chuck you into like the Fisher decision here, but I can't think of somebody better to actually talk about it with than you. So the Supreme Court just handed down Fisher, and apparently it's a total win. This happened while we were live. Have you been able to read the ruling?
No, I didn't even know they did that.
Oh, okay.
I got to catch up
Great
myself.
Job. Great job, producers. Good job, team. Okay. All right.
Good win for America. That's a good win. I know that.
All right. Well, let's toss it up just so that let's toss up actually the article on it just so that we can sort of show what's going on. Supreme Court says obstruction charges for January 6 rioters could be thrown out. Here's how it will impact election interference.
I think you pretty much predicted this on your show. It's unconstitutional to apply a financial regulatory crime statute to criminal defendants facing charges for obstructing a congressional proceeding. Literally, what the DOJ and Merrick Garland did, they went to 360 Jan 6 defendants and said, we're going to charge you with obstruction of a federal proceeding. And I was like, okay, what criminal statute are you referring to when you do that? They went back to the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, a financial regulatory act to prosecute financial criminals. and specifically used a statute that said if you, during the financial crimes investigations, fail to turn over evidence to the DOJ, you're obstructing a criminal proceeding, an investigatory proceeding. How does that relate to people who were at January 6th at the Capitol and have anything to do with whatever Congress was doing inside? It, of course, does not. And now we have seen the weapon.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hold for just a moment. I think Cash's connection is just catching up. While we reconnect with Cash, another great name for a show. Why don't we we'll get Cash reconnected here, ladies and gentlemen. Producers will work on that. Julie Kelly, who was on the show yesterday and would have been awesome to talk about this. She was chomping at the bit to talk about this. Julie Kelly was upset that this decision didn't come yesterday. In a massive victory for January 6 political prisoners, an unprecedented defeat for the corrupt Biden, Garland, Monaco, Graves DOJ, SCOTUS has overturned the DOJ's use of 1532C2, obstruction of official proceeding in J6 cases. This means, she says in all caps, this means the Department of Justice has unlawfully prosecuted 350 plus Americans for their participation in January 6th, a flagrant abuse of the law to punish those who protested Biden's election and criminalize political dissent. So there we go. This is a massive, massive victory, ladies and gentlemen. Again, happening live while we are live on the show, while we are live on the program. Donald Trump having absolutely massive answers yesterday on January 6th. Do we got Cash again? Yeah. Yep. Here we go. Cash. Hey, man. Sorry about that.
No, I think Joe Biden and his FBI were trying to infiltrate our truth-telling story time.
Well, I mean, this is. I screamed at my TV. You can ask my wife when I heard Trump talk about the National Guard. I'm like, Cash, it's Cash. And you've been to my house, Cash. I'm just sitting down there in the living room and I'm screaming at that TV because you were at my house 2.5 years ago on the 4th of July. And you said it was like, I think the first time maybe you had ever said it publicly, you're like, the National Guard was authorized by Trump. You made huge news. Everyone called you a liar. And here's Trump absolutely mogging Biden on the debate stage, proving you are right.
Well, look, it's like Russiagate all over again. It took that one took 3 years. So this one took 2 years. I guess we're getting better at it to get the truth out to the American people. But that's really all that matters, right? I mean, people are like in the mainstream media are surprised. They're like, oh my God. They knew what the truth was. They just buried it because they wanted the insurrection narrative, just like they wanted to prosecute January 6ers unconstitutionally for obstructing a proceeding that doesn't exist on the federal statute books. And so I'm so glad Donald Trump brought up the National Guard, but he did it with detailed particularity. He referenced how Pelosi and Bowser refused the National Guard, which is what the law requires, and that they were the ones, not Donald Trump. And granted, Donald Trump, of course, authorized the National Guard preemptively, but explaining and adding that detail that it was not just he took the right actions, Pelosi and Bowser took the wrong actions and lied about it and then connected it to the unselect January 6th committee. It was brilliant. And it wasn't, responded to in any, of course, not by Joe Biden. He wasn't even really there. But even the moderators couldn't come back at him and say, it's still a lie, because now they know it's the truth. We've put the receipts out. You've put the receipts out. And it was just a tremendous victory for people who care about the truth. Irrespective of what your position on January 6th is, President Trump was telling the truth, acted appropriately, and the Democrats wanted a riot. They wanted a political narrative. They wanted a pot shot and a deep state way of taking out Donald Trump, which was insurrection. And that was totally put to bed last night.
I got to tell you, man, I've never seen a narrative reversal last night like that. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about, your former, maybe future bosses, capacity to do this last night, because it was really something else. Laura Trump was on the program right before the debate, and she's like, he's going to be calm, he's going to be collected, he's going to be presidential, but he's going to right wrongs on the debate stage. And I got to tell you, January 6th was at the very tippy top of narratives that were reversed. It's got to go January 6th, number one. His ability to de-venomize and defang those baked in talking points. Yeah, I said march peacefully. Yes, I gave them the National Guard. Nancy Pelosi said she was responsible for the security. This is actually her fault. All of that landed, and there was no comeback. There was no response from the moderators or Joe Biden. It's incredible.
None, because they know they would have been destroyed on this international audience viewing after the work we have put in for the last 2 years, getting the truth out, getting the documents out. It's not like CNN could say, oh, well, I read this letter from Pelosi and Bowser, and it does not say they didn't reject troops, because that's exactly what it says. And we've been blasting in their faces, and I've been testifying before the Unselect Committee. So, but the way he stitched it together for me, shows the brilliance of Donald Trump. Not only did he take and destroy the insurrection narrative on the eve of a great Supreme Court decision, he also tied that disinformation campaign together with the disinformation campaign that was a suckers and losers comment, and then tied that brilliantly together how he is the champion of the United States military, not President Biden, and then annihilated Joe Biden on his Afghanistan withdrawal, and then called out Joe Biden for saying, no troops have died since I've become president, except for the 13 that you allowed to be blown up in Afghanistan because you let a terrorist bomber out of Bagram Detention Center when we in the Trump administration told you repeatedly, here is the withdrawal plan, and you decided to politicize it. I thought Donald Trump's brilliance was on full display, stitching that together, and then he looped in the border. I mean, those to me are the biggest issues we got right now, and I thought he put them on full display last night, and it was really powerful to see.
It'd be really hard to I mean, this is a really tough question. It's a tough question you can ask somebody in media, but what did Joe Biden do last night? What's your take? While you were watching, you're a very accomplished person. You've obviously studied many people in courts, in our federal government. You know a lot about Joe Biden. You know so much about Joe Biden, and you've predicted on the show what was going to happen. Donald Trump saying that Joe Biden could be criminally charged as soon as he leaves office. Maybe you'll be the guy to do the charging. Not sure, but what's your take on Joe last night?
Well, obviously it was all cheap fakes, and it was ginned up by the Benny Johnson show. None of that was real, just so you guys know. No, but it's ironic that up until last night, every mainstream media outlet was dissing Donald Trump for putting out cheap fakes, whatever that is, as if videos of Joe Biden literally falling were somehow AI generated, or Joe Biden spewing 77 consonants in a row were somehow AI generated, or Joe Biden literally barking at the media in the Oval Office randomly with the world leader standing next to him were AI generated. Well, that, along with all the other disinformation campaigns we just talked about, was destroyed last night with Joe Biden. And I don't think there are words. And honestly, I thought Donald Trump's response to that was brilliant. He goes, Joe, I want you to succeed as our president for our national security. And I've agreed with that for years. And now our adversaries saw what happened last night, and they're like, man, we are going to take it to America for the next 8 months with this guy still at the helm. That's what they saw, that guy. And they're like, we are going to steamroll these guys at the border with narcotics. We're going to take advantage of them in the forever wars. We're going to douse them in the trade negotiations. And we're not going to get our hostages back. I'm so happy President Trump brought up hostages, because it is something that is so critical to the national security of this country. Donald Trump, I was so honored to lead his counterterrorism programs where he brought back 54 hostages and detainees. That's more than everybody combined before him, everyone. And Joe Biden's out there giving $6 billion to Iran and releasing the merchant of death for a couple of citizens, when Donald Trump did it the right way by not spending money and using diplomacy and global dominance to get our citizens back. And like Donald Trump raised last night, there's a journalist, an American journalist in Russian prison, and Putin ain't letting him out unless Joe Biden gives him $15 billion, which he's dumb enough to maybe do. But Trump will get that guy out in day one. These are things we did that most Americans, that President Trump did, that most Americans just don't even know about, because the mainstream media lied to them for 6 years, and Trump just basically wiped the board clean with them last night.
Man, now it just seems like the lies, there is no more capacity to lie. It's all been evaporated. The veneer's been stripped, the bark's been stripped off entirely. Everyone's turning on Joe Biden, but Joe Biden's saying he'll stick it out. The collapsing in the polls, and some of the loudest voices on the left saying Donald Trump 2024 is inevitable. And so I did want to ask you, Cash, and I know that obviously this is who knows, right, what'll happen. But let's say, metaphorically, that Trump were to win and that you would go back to the DOJ. And Donald Trump's looking right at Joe Biden. The nastiest glare he got is he looks at Joe Biden. He's like, "You're a criminal, and your son's a felon, and your son's probably going to get a lot more felonies." And they let the statute of limitations lapse, but that's not going to happen. Under my watch, we're going to actually go after criminals like you, Joe Biden. You're a criminal. What would you do, Cash, to see that vision through? Let's say you were at the DOJ. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we have a frozen Cash. I really wanted to hear the answer to that question. So I guess we will do our best to effort Cash back. Yeah, we get Cash. We promise Cash back on this program. All right, whatever. Enough cash puns. All right, so here we go, ladies and gentlemen. The breaking news from the Supreme Court. Let's hit it. This happened just seconds ago. Big news, good news.
And some more breaking news, this time about the January 6th rioters. The Supreme Court has just ruled. Let's get to Shannon Bream. What did they say?
So what they have said is that one of the statutes the Justice Department used to charge hundreds of different January 6 defendants is no good. And that includes President Donald Trump, because he has actually had 2 of these counts against him in the Jack Smith D.C. case against him, that federal criminal case that has been on hold here. So what essentially they say is this statute, which was passed in the wake of Enron, they say it doesn't fit here. He says, given that the subsection was enacted to address the Enron disaster, not some other far-flung set of dangers like what happened just right over here at the Capitol, it is unlikely that Congress responded with such an unfocused and grossly incommensurate patch in English that essentially means that all of these people who were charged under this particular obstruction statute for January 6th, that is no good. The dissent, this is a very interesting vote makeup, because the dissent is actually written by Justice Barrett, and she is joined by Justices Sotomayor and Kagan. She says that Congress did intend for this kind of conduct to be brought under this particular obstruction charge. She thinks the majority got it wrong. But what it means is a big headache for the DOJ and good news for hundreds of January 6 defendants charged under this statute, again, including.
Man, okay, what a wild 12 hours we've been through. So first you have Donald Trump saying, I'm a political prisoner last night, and this guy's trying to put me in prison, pointing directly at Joe Biden. Joe Biden has no answer to that. Joe Biden looks terrible at that. And every single time that they tried lawfare against Donald Trump, his poll numbers went up, which Trump alliterated to last night. And it's true. And now Trump's saying you're trying to put me in jail when you're the actual criminal. And that's all you have. And Joe Biden had, of course, no response. Joe Biden just sat there, with his mouth open, his tongue wagging. I cannot get it out of my head that this is the way that Joe Biden carried himself on stage. Truly, a drooling dog. Anyway, then Donald Trump eviscerates the talking points about January 6th. Just shadow boxing, just like bowling pins. No, I gave the National Guard. Yes, I said march peacefully. Yes, you're allowed to peacefully assemble in Washington, D.C. And then I told everyone to go home. Yes, I am innocent of all of these charges. And lo and behold, 8 hours later, the Supreme Court says effectively, yeah, you're innocent of half the charges that Jack Smith brought against you here, along with 350 other political prisoners in this country. And the DOJ now has a horrible, horrible mess on their hands. There's nobody that I would want to talk about this breaking news with more, along with the mechanisms of how the DNC would possibly replace Joe Biden. So everybody's out there clutching their pearls, screaming about replacing Joe Biden, because they're just such skittish herd animals on the left. But do they even know how to do it? Can it even be done? Joining us now, Darren Beatty of Revolver News to talk about all of these points. Okay, Darren, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Great to be with you, Benny.
Hey, okay. So you've been obviously posting straight fire, saying swapping out Joe Biden is not going to be easy for the Democrat Party, and you have a great article up at Revolver about this. But just off the top, since it just broke, I want to get your decision, your reaction on Fisher here. Seems like a huge win and a massive hole blown into the DOJ just seconds ago at the Supreme Court.
It's a great win. It's extremely encouraging. And, for those who don't know, this, specific charge has been a staple of a lot of the cases. And in fact, our early analysis that led to exposing the mechanics of the Fed's direction rested on basically looking at the selective application of just this very charge. And so I think this is very important and relevant, obviously, for all of the defendants who've been afflicted by this particular type of persecution, this particular type of lawfare. But I hope that it suggests something broader in terms of the court's reluctance to abide by novel legal theories in general when it comes to these sort of politically oriented prosecution. For instance, if this isn't valid, then it's hard to imagine how something like the acrobatics of the Stormy Daniels case that recently convicted Trump under a novel theory, how that could be upheld as well. So I hope that this portends good things for the broader approach of the left to use novel legal theories. Conspiracy against rights is another one. They're just doing whatever they can, seeing what sticks. And thankfully, this didn't stick. But my understanding is Amy Barrett actually wrote a dissent in this, which is quite disappointing.
Yeah.
If that's the case, I haven't read it yet, but if that's the case, that would be yet another disappointment from Amy Coney Barrett.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so it really is amazing the people that the right works so hard to get onto the court and takes so many lashes over are the ones who end up betraying us the hardest. Sandra Day O'Connor, it's the same thing.
I'm proud to say, Benny, that Revolver News, where we're known for taking sometimes the unconventional position. We were, I think, very rare among the media, the sort of the right media, in opposing Barrett. And for a lot of these reasons, is that just looking at her character, her history of opinions, it seemed like she would be more susceptible to the draw of the left wing of the court on certain types of issues. And unfortunately, we've been proven right on a number of occasions.
Yes, that's right. The free speech case as well, earlier this week with standing with Missouri versus the federal government and censorship. So too much to get to. But you've done such incredible reporting at Revolver on January 6th, and since that was just
Benny,
decided.
I would say, because I know we're pressed for time, but if those are people are interested in the unconventional wisdom, I'd encourage everyone to go to revolver.news and read our detailed analysis about why, in all likelihood, they're not going to be able to replace Biden. Because I know a lot of people, even on the right, think after a performance like that, he's got to go. There's some magical conspiratorial they that can just snap their fingers and then he's gone. But it doesn't work like that. They put themselves in a severe strategic bind here. It's a colossal screw up. They could have done it a year ago. They didn't. And now they're absolutely screwed. I think they're stuck with Biden. And we go into pretty minute detail as to why that's the case from a strategic and tactical standpoint.
So let's get through that right now, because that's all the rage. There's every front page of every publication is replace. We just went through the New York Times, Washington Post, Daily Mail, New York Post, Politico. Politico has like 20 articles screaming to replace Joe Biden. You're saying that can't happen?
Well, I would never say never, but it's far more difficult and far less likely than people imagine. First of all, are they going to force Biden to leave, or are they going to somehow convince him? Keep in mind, with the legal troubles that his family is facing, he's going to want to cling to the pardon power more than ever. Jill Biden has exhibited no interest in relinquishing power. And there's this sense that, there might be these conspiratorial insiders who are setting him up. All the people around Biden, their political fates are largely tied to his as well. So it's in their best interest to buy the media Kool-Aid and convince themselves. And people forget that Democrat elites, more than any other species of human being, actually do buy into the propaganda junk that's fed to them by the mainstream media. And so in an ironic sense, the fake news media might have ended up screwing over the Democrats by gaslighting them about Biden's health until it's too late. So then let's say, so Biden might not want to step aside. He probably doesn't. So that's difficult. Number two is, who are they going to replace him with? They need to come up with a consensus candidate. The Democrat establishment really doesn't like Kamala. The media kind of likes Kamala. That's another dilemma. How are they going to overstep Kamala without further aggravating a base that's already incensed over the Israel-Palestine issue? That's yet another problem. And then people can look at the boring kind of procedural mechanics of how that would work within the DNC. And that's, I encourage people to go to the Revolver piece for the details there. But long story short, the DNC is staffed with Biden lackeys who are probably not going to, go out of their way to remove the guy with whose, political prospects their own are so intimately connected. So they're probably not going to do that. And then as a final consideration, kind of related to the point about the Democrat base, Biden, for all of his faults, has a kind of, people know that he's not real, and therefore he enjoys this kind of legacy lame duck status that enables the Democrats to punt a lot of deep fissures that are getting worse and worse within the party. If Biden were to go, all of those fissures would come to the fore, the fissures that we see through all these major protests against Biden for Israel. In the right-wing media, people imagine Biden as some Hamas agent, but the left base thinks of Biden as overly obsequious to Israel, and they're furious about it because they're all pro-Palestine. That's why they've been having these protests. That specific dynamic, I think, would come to the fore much more conspicuously so if Biden were to be removed. So long story short, it's a huge headache to get rid of him. They don't have a likely replacement. And one last point here is that for these kinds of things, the media is excellent at manufacturing consent, but they need time and they need runway. This late in the game, they just don't have the time to prepare the public consciousness for how wonderful whoever the next person is that they would replace him with. They're out of time. They waited too long and they screwed up. And that's as simple as that. The Democrats are screwed.
They actually lied themselves into this because there has been such a protection apparatus up into the last couple of weeks. My entire timeline on X is filled with clips of Joe Scarborough and Alejandro Mayorkas being like, Joe Biden, he's so smart, we can barely keep up with him. He's so brilliant, he's so bright. He's never been effing better, says Joe Scarborough.
And he has a 6 handicap in golf.
You've obviously worked very, very closely with President Trump. How would you score his handicap last night during the debate?
I think he did excellent. I think that the best thing that he did was to not give in to the number of temptations that would have been there. I think it almost would have looked bad if he had kind of been more brutal about the condition that Biden was in. It could have actually ended up making people sympathetic to Biden. He handled it very well. I'm usually not one of these people who are like, oh yeah, discipline is good. I'm usually the person saying the less disciplined he is, the better. But in this particular case, I think it really worked well given the context of just kind of letting Biden demonstrate to the American public the condition he's in, which is abysmal.
You must have been really excited during the January 6th narrative flip with Donald Trump. Because never on a national stage has so many, presumably tens of, perhaps even hundreds of millions of people been exposed to the reality, the empirical reality of that day. Revolver News has done a wonderful job reporting on the nuance of January 6th, but this was a massive red pill or black pill to the nation about what happened there.
Yes. Well, I mean, Biden's trying to be, January 6th is part of the Democrats' extracurricular strategy to beat Trump. It's, one of their legal cases against Trump. Biden took, an hour plus. Given his condition, that's a lot to give a major speech on the anniversary of January 6th. And it just doesn't land. The people by this time, either they don't care about January 6th or they understand that January 6th narrative is a lie and a Fedsurrection. I was very encouraged. Trump's been reading Revolver from the beginning. First time he tweeted about us, I think, was September 2020, but he's been particularly interested in this January 6th stuff. And I was very encouraged to see a rally recently in which he went deep into the January 6th lore, not only talking about Ray Epps, who's become like a household name synonymous with the lies of January 6th, but even into people like the Scaffold Commander, who are in some ways far more mysterious and far more dark than even Epps in terms of his involvement in January 6th. So I think everybody knows that it's a sham. For those following our research at Revolver, we're at the very end stages of fully exposing the pipe bomb hoax. We have a cover-up man that we've named, and believe it or not, the person that we believe with extreme conviction is one of the key cover-up people for the January 6th pipe bomb is currently the head of intelligence and dignitary protection at the Capitol right now. The person in charge of protecting the lives of the members of Congress is a person that I believe very strongly is a cover-up person for January 6th. So we have that piece as well. We're in the end stage. Things are looking good, from the Supreme Court, the debates, to the presidential situation, to the narratives surrounding January 6th and other things. Things are looking good. People often say the GOP is a stupid party, but this time the Dems are the ones that have screwed up, and they're in a very bad place.
Okay, so following that to its, very silver linings, glass half full, optimistic conclusion, there is, let's say that it all plays out, and Democrats on Capitol Hill and Democrat consultants are saying the Senate and the House belong to the GOP, and we've effectively surrendered the White House. So let's say that actually happens, Darren. Based on your research, where would you want to see some of the first acts? What would you want to see some of the first acts of a properly formatted Donald Trump DOJ? What would you like to see happen first? Right? That Donald Trump did look at Joe Biden and say, "You're a criminal last night. Your son's going to get a bunch more felonies, and you deserve to be investigated." Right. Donald Trump brought up January 6th and used some of your reporting to do so. Where would you like to see? Where would you like to see that administration properly go? Final question.
Obviously, I'd like to see a proper committee take the truth of January 6th to its ultimate conclusion. And for those criminally responsible, and there are people who are criminally responsible, hold them to account. There's talk about retribution, tit for tat, but I almost think that's the wrong vocabulary, because on the side of the left and their weaponized DOJ, they're introducing novel legal theories and incredible acrobatics for ridiculous stuff like this Stormy Daniels case. Whereas in the case of many prominent Democrats and many people in the deep state, or whatever you want to call it, there are real serious crimes that don't require that kind of acrobatics. They simply require an equal and sensible application of the law. So I would hope that in order to restore some kind of confidence that we are a nation of laws and a rule of laws, there would be accountability at the highest level for people like Merrick Garland, for people like Mayorkas, for people like some of the people that I'm very suspicious about in relation to January 6th. There needs to be an aggressive push against these people in order to restore the American people's faith in our country as one governed by laws.
Yeah, something that is regularly echoed on this program, but what was said last night directly to Joe Biden is, you're criminally responsible for the largest human smuggling operation in world history. Like, do you expect to be charged for that? And given the precedent that you can just charge a president, I expect charges, I guess. And that was said directly to Joe Biden's face. So I guess buckle up. Right? It's going to be very, very interesting next couple of months. Thank you, Darren, so much for your reporting on all of this. Everybody go to Revolver News. Here's the homepage right now. Follow Darren as well, and make sure that you are truly informed. Read sites like Revolver. They go deep in, and are used by Donald Trump in his speeches, maybe even today. So thank you, Darren. Godspeed.
Thank you, Benny. Thank you so much.
All right, baby. We're rocking and we're rolling. We're gonna text Cash. We're gonna be like, Cash, you owe us an answer, Cash. We asked you a good question. You owe us an answer. Man, people are answering the question. How bad did it get for Joe Biden? Let's go to like the people who are the most weepy about last night. This guy named Van Jones, who is a big time Obama apparatchik. He worked for Barack Obama. He worked for Joe Biden. He now is a professional dude on CNN. He was the person who was predicting that if Joe Biden did bad in this debate, that he's cooked, that he's done. And lo and behold, Joe Biden did very bad in the debate. And so I was very interested in Van Jones and how he responded. And it didn't disappoint. Van Jones straight up dooming last night. Let's go.
I just want to speak from my heart. I love that guy. That's a good man. He loves his country. He's doing the best that he can. But he had a test to meet tonight to restore confidence of the country and of the base. And he failed to do that. And I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to see him consider taking a different course now. We're still far from our convention. And there is time for this party to figure out a different way forward if he will allow us to do that. But that was not what we needed from Joe Biden, and it's personally painful for a lot of people. It's not just panic, it's pain for what we saw tonight.
It's pain. It really is amazing the way that, you don't hear conservatives talk like this. You don't hear Republicans. Like, we have too much testosterone, right? In our body. We don't talk as though like politics is ripping our hearts out. We're like, we're Republicans. We're used to losing. We're going to gear up. We're going to go at it the next time. We also have our God, our church, our families to keep us grounded. But libs are herd animals and they spook, like a herd of sheep. And so yesterday they were all just spooked. They're all losing their minds. Here's Abby Phillips on CNN. Again, these are all like CNN people. Their job was to install Joe Biden. And now they're straight up saying, it's over. It's over. Here's the young starlet of CNN saying, the panic I'm hearing is unlike anything I've ever heard in the campaign.
Political elites and the American people, be nice to see what the voters say. But I can tell you, it started minutes in. It started with the first couple of answers, and it has continued throughout the night from oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, to what do we do about this? And it involves very senior people in the Democratic Party, including elected officials, saying we have a problem.
And just to co-sign what John is saying, I mean, the panic that I am hearing from Democrats is not like anything that I have heard in this campaign so far.
Oh, yeah, it's unlike anything I have heard in the campaign so far. Oh, okay. And that story is the same across spectrums. Ladies and gentlemen, this one is my absolute favorite all time. This is the all-time favorite. Chris Wallace, dude who was bragging about how he tanked Donald Trump in 2020 by rigging his debate against Donald Trump, saying that Joe Biden has effectively ended his campaign this time around, calling Joe Biden a car wreck. And I know as a matter of fact that he and Joe Biden are like besties. They are good friends. So, those criticisms, they sting so badly. Watch.
That the two of them decided after November of 2022 that he was going to seek the presidency when there were so many people who thought he should have turned it over to a new generation. And this has been, quite frankly, a car accident in slow motion that we've seen over and building and questioning it. And, as has been pointed out, Joe Biden sought this debate at this remarkably early time because he knew he was losing and he needed to change the narrative. Yep. And he did change the narrative. He sunk his campaign tonight.
Gosh, it's a car wreck, and he sunk his campaign tonight. This from Joe Biden's swamp friends. Ooh. Who was also on that panel was Casey Hunt. Amazing how Casey Hunt didn't kick Chris Wallace off and cut his mic as soon as he was critical of Joe Biden. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, somebody who was cut off on CNN and was kicked off air, had her mic cut, is Donald Trump's own press secretary for the 2024 campaign, Caroline Leavitt, and she joins the program now. Ooh, this has got to be some sweet vindication for you. Your coffee must have tasted so good this morning.
There's not enough coffee in the world this morning, Betty. It's been a long week, but a great week. And last night was so epic. We are so proud of President Trump. He had a spectacular debate performance. Honestly, one of the best debate performances of all time. He was focused, he was disciplined, he was strong, he was on message, he focused on the issues voters actually care about. And then, of course, there was Joe Biden, which was absolutely catastrophic.
Can you explain to us from inside of the campaign, maybe like what the takeaway was when you saw Joe Biden, like his jaw start to droop and his tongue wag out and his eyes begin to glaze over? I've never seen anything like it. I'm not trying to be mean. Yeah. It's literally what everyone's talking about. Like, how geeked out was this dude?
Well, honestly, it was shocking. And right out the gate, his voice was the first thing I think we all noticed as a country and as a campaign. And the first thought was, what the heck have they been doing to him in the woods at Camp David for the past week? I thought he was up there, holed away, getting massages, probably some Botox, B12 injections. My goodness, no, he sounded and looked horrid. And, you know, it really proved our point. There is a little bit of vindication today because we've been battling the fake news now for the past several weeks who have been accusing us of deceptively editing videos and engaging in cheap fakes. Now the whole world sees there is nothing fake about Joe Biden's lack of mental acuity. And last night proved this race isn't about age, it's about competence. And Joe Biden is incompetent. He cannot lead this country for another 4 years. There's just simply no way.
From your internal metrics, and I'm sure you had sort of live reactions to this, what was the highlight for President Trump from the campaign perspective?
Well, I think a couple of things. One, when Joe Biden had that really terrible line and brain lapse when he said, "I beat Medicare," and President Trump shot back with his classic one-liner saying, "You did beat it. You beat it into the ground, and you're going to continue to." That was just epic. I thought that President Trump also showed a lot of great compassion last night that really resonated with voters at home, especially when he talked about the victims of migrant crime. He knows these families personally. He's taken time to meet with them, to call these mourning mothers across the country. And for Joe Biden to stand up there and just pretend they don't exist and deny responsibility for his open border invasion, I think was a very powerful moment. And my favorite line of all was when the president said that in Joe Biden's America, we have illegal aliens living in luxury hotels while homeless veterans are living in the streets. That's a sharp contrast that I don't think any American wants to hear. And it was a very powerful message.
Yes. Could you explain one thing for me? And I'm trying not to speculate on what Joe Biden meant by this, but in talking about migrant crime and in talking about your boss going to the funerals of young Americans who've died at the hands of criminal aliens, Joe Biden said that the real problem in America is women, and I'm quoting here, being raped by their sisters. Could you please unpack that for me?
You know, Benny, you're going to have the Biden campaign spokesperson on your show to ask them what he meant by that, because I have absolutely no idea. It was one of many moments where he clearly did not know what he was saying. It's very odd. And it was a botched response. I mean, look, the Democrats, they feel their number one strongest issue is abortion. And Joe Biden couldn't even defend his position on that. Yes. He was weak on everything, but even on the issues where Democrats are perceived to be stronger. And it just shows that they're not. And President Trump, I think, answered the question on abortion very effectively, explaining his position and pledging not to sign a federal ban when he's in office, which is what he's said now for months, but the Democrats keep lying about it.
So will the golf game happen? Many saying, like, let's just let him play golf, right? Like, and let's just solve it there.
Yeah, I think it was Dave Portnoy who said, let's just solve this on the course and it'll all be said and done. Hey, I'm sure President Trump would absolutely host Joe Biden at one of his many beautiful clubs to play a round of golf. I do not think that is going to happen.
Okay, so you guys have got to be walking on air. Now, I've seen the ads that have been rolled out. The polling, obviously, it's the snap polling at least, shows massive dominance in your favor. One, like how how vindicated are you in your preparation for all this? Because I know for a fact that you were involved in Donald Trump's debate preparation. And then what are the next steps? Because again, now you are there's a vibe change now after this debate.
Well, we're going to keep moving along and doing what we have been doing, which is having President Trump go all over this country to bring his winning message, to continue drawing this contrast of his strength versus Biden's weakness. And we're already doing that. Less than 24 hours later, President Trump on his way to the Commonwealth of Virginia now to host a massive rally. I see there are thousands of cars already lined up, ready to go. Virginia is a state that Republicans haven't won in decades, and we're going on offense there because we're tied in the polls. I'm sure that will change it for the better after last night's performance. And we just announced we're opening 11 offices in the Commonwealth as well. So we're going to continue to go on offense and pick up as many votes as we possibly can to ensure that this election on November the 5th is a historic re-election for President Trump and Republicans up and down the ballot as well.
I've got to get your takeaway, because this is the number one talking point right now on the left. The people that would like to kick, the people that cut your mic and kick you off air when you're on CNN, they say, swap the candidate, quick, change out Joe Biden. This is everyone saying, from Morning Joe to the New York Times op-ed pages. They are all now in unison saying the same thing, which always makes us a little curious and a little suspicious. But nonetheless, they're all saying, swap out the candidate. What's the campaign's official line on that? What's your thoughts?
Look, I think it's virtually impossible for the Democrats to swap out Joe Biden. They're stuck with him. And you know what? They did it to themselves, because we have been calling out the truth for months. We have been saying Joe Biden is incompetent. He's a terrible candidate. Look at the polls. They've denied that reality. They clearly haven't gone out across this country like we have and heard feedback from voters who are not enthusiastic at all about Joe Biden's presidency, even before last night's performance. And shame on the media, because they've been complicit in the Democrats' cover-up of Joe Biden's clear physical and cognitive decline. But now the whole world can see that President Trump and our campaign is right. Republicans have been correct. Joe Biden cannot serve another 4 years. They are in complete disarray about that. I'm sure there's a lot of high-level calls with Democrat officials taking place this morning trying to figure out what to do. And that's up to them. I think it's going to be very difficult for them to get another horse in this race at this point. But no matter what, we'll be prepared for victory on November the 5th, because it's not just Joe Biden's policies, it's the Democrat Party policies that have destroyed this country over the past few years. The Democrat Party supports open borders. The Democrat Party supports higher taxes. Democrat Party supports a weak foreign policy strategy that has resulted in more war, more bloodshed around this world. President Trump stands for secure borders, law and order, low taxes, making gas cheap again. That's a winning message no matter who is on the ticket.
It must have been particularly hard for you. It was hard, I think, for the whole of America to watch Joe Biden crumble in the debate last night. And you can see Joe Biden sort of leading him around by the hand afterwards. Joe Biden being incapable of doing the small stare. I know your campaign has sent this out a couple of times, being incapable of doing the teeny stare on the debate stage afterward. You at some point, do you sit back and you're like, this is elder abuse?
Absolutely. As an American citizen last night, not just as President Trump's spokeswoman, as someone who loves this country, it was deeply concerning to watch. There were times I actually shielded away from the television because this is the leader of the free world, after all, whether we like it or not. And our adversaries absolutely were watching Joe Biden's performance last night. And now they are further plotting to take advantage of our country before they know he will be departing office this fall. They already are. This week, while Biden was hiding in the woods, we know that 400 ISIS-linked terrorists were smuggled into our country by ISIS at Joe Biden's open border. Of course, we see China encroaching on Taiwan. We see the war in Ukraine continuing to unfold. We see Iranian-backed terrorists in the Middle East continuing to launch attacks on our ally Israel. That's not even mentioning what's happening here at home with the chaos and division that Joe Biden has caused. So it's very concerning that this is the leader of our country right now. And so while we're elated about President Trump's amazing debate performance last night, we're not elated about what is happening to our nation. But that's why President Trump and our team are fighting so very hard to ensure victory. We have a country to save, and President Trump is the man to do it. It's a big task, a huge challenge. But we have the best leader in President Trump, who's building an amazing political movement that is backed by millions and millions of common sense, hardworking people across this country. And we're gonna win on November 5th.
Just really quickly, because I know that you're short on time, but are you seeing a ton of inflow, a ton of positive inflow? I'm seeing like Bill Ackman, who's a left-wing billionaire, tweeting about Trump's going to be president. We should all support Trump now. It's remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing more unification around President Trump, no doubt about it. We've raised a significant sum of money in the last 24 hours from grassroots patriots across this great country. So anyone who wants to join our team, please do. We need boots on the ground as well in the key battleground states to ensure election integrity. That's a big part of making sure we can truly win in a free and fair election. So go to DonaldJTrump.com and sign up today. We cannot get complacent. We have to win.
We'll be watching for your booking on Casey Hunt's show. It will be what a wonderful vindication.
Yeah. And I will say, give credit where credit is due. They asked good questions last night. They did focus on issues that mattered. They asked tough questions of both candidates, and we appreciate that. That is what we were hoping for all week long. So to Casey Hunt, same time next week, I'm down. Let's do it.
Okay. We'll be watching. Thank you so much, Caroline. Here we go. Everybody go follow Caroline. There we go. What are we at? Oh, 166,000. Let's go, baby. On to 1 million. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Godspeed.
Becky. Thank you.
All right, baby. Whew. We are back. We are back. Now we've got something. We got an awesome guest coming up for you. Somebody who called out from like 1,000 yards that they were going to do the old switcheroo. Somebody who's been writing for months about how unpopular Joe Biden is, and how Joe Biden's own White House and his own administration actually are actively plotting against him. And it is a incredible story, and we have the world's expert who will be joining the show in just a moment. Somebody who's not an expert really in anything other than throwing their own hissy fits on air, and we just have to get to this. We have to get to this. Morning Joe. So Joe, I don't think are they married, ALX? Joe and Mika. I'm not sure if they're married exactly. We're gonna play these clips back to back. They had like a domestic this morning. So Joe Biden failing last night is actually leading to like Joe and Mika having salty, bitter, angry domestics. Let's play these clips back to back and let's salt these libs. I think it's salty enough. Alex, let me know. I think it's salty enough to salt the libs here. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. So let's play these clips back to back. Get your salt shakers ready. Salt them. Joe Biden collapsing last night caused a bitter, vicious, on-camera meltdown between these two deeply unhappy libs that go on TV every single morning, called Morning Joe. Let's add some sodium to their coffee. Here we go.
Now we're talking about Mike Barnicle democracy. And again, I'm not saying that everything happens today and maybe we wait a week. I'm just saying personal feelings, personal admiration, love, respect, honor, all the things I talked about in my feelings about Joe Biden, Jill Biden, and their family, that Mika and her family have felt about Joe Biden for 50 years, that I felt for as long as I've known him, that you felt about Joe Biden, that cannot play a role in any of this. This is a battle for the future of American democracy. And now is a good time. In June, thank God, in June, and not October, in June, this is the last chance for Democrats to decide whether this man we've known and loved for a very long time is up to the task of running for president of the United States.
Okay, hold on a second. That I agree with everything you said, except for the last part of it. Everybody calm down, and I'll tell you why. I mean, it's fine to not spin what happened last night, and we're not going to.
But by the way,
he had
Mika,
a terrible
by the way,
night.
Mika, everybody's calm here.
No,
you're the
but-
only one raising your voice.
No, no,
Everybody
no.
is calm here.
But again, it's the let's just immediately pull this. Let's end this. Let's find someone else.
That's not what Mike said.
That attitude toward this is what I am saying slow down on, because again, there's no spinning it, but let's be balanced. Let's for once show some balance in a media world that is so shrill with imbalance that we've become inured to the difference between these two candidates. So let's put it this way. Gene Robinson, I'll go to you.
Well, wait. I just have to stop you. First of all, we always show balance.
We are, yeah.
Secondly, nobody's panicking. I said these were questions that Democrats and Joe Biden needed to ask themselves. And Mike said he missed one pitch down the middle after another and wasn't up to it last night.
Right, okay.
He said
wasn't up to it last night.
He said last night. So I will say that it's not panic. I mean, it's not being panicked, to understand what's at stake and understand the window is closing very quickly. And if last night did not reveal that to you and other Democrats, then it needs to be revealed pretty soon.
That clip had me sending. I've been married for 7 years. Okay? Got a couple kids. And let me tell you something, Joe. If you're in the quiet of your own home, in your own kitchen, with your kids asleep, and nobody else but you and your wife in the room, and you go, calm down, lady, you're gonna have a bad night. If you're on live TV being watched by millions, and you go, hey, lady, calm down, you're gonna have a bad day, dude. Apparently their marriage is on the rocks. Maybe that was a bit of marriage counseling live on TV there. I don't know. I guess they're married. They got married in 2018. All right. Okay, got it. According to recent reporting, they're experiencing difficulties, challenges in their relationship. I think you just saw them playing out their live, and ooh, baby. That was spicy. Somebody who has a very happy marriage, and I think like 1 million kids, and who has been doing the best reporting on the intrigue around Joe Biden and the old switcheroo that may happen, is senior reporter for the Daily Mail, Charlie Spearing, who joins the program now. Charlie, just really quickly, man, do you ever tell your wife, okay, calm down, all right? Hey, lady, calm down. Is that a smart move?
I don't think I've ever done that. You especially don't use that 4-letter C word, calm down. That's not a good play ever.
Bro, like it's Joe Scarborough. We're all calm here, Mika. You're the one who's screaming. He's like saying that. I'm like, dude, how broken are these people? They're broken because of reporting like yours. You know, they were calling you a fraud a couple of days ago, saying that Kamala Harris, that there may be a switcheroo in the White House. And now everyone's saying that you're vindicated. It's awesome.
Yeah, it was very interesting to see the folks on Morning Joe admit that this report existed and then confirming it with their own sources, saying this is definitely a thing, that you have to get these 4 people to go to unite and present the Biden family with this united front if you're going to convince Joe Biden to step down. Right now, keep all your eyes on Nancy Pelosi. She's the #1 Biden defender at this point, and she just said that it's not time for a new nominee. And Biden's about to speak in about half an hour, so we'll see what he can do to quell the rebellion. It's definitely out there. You see people reading from the same script. We love Joe Biden. We appreciate what he did, but maybe it's time to have the conversation to go. It's going to be a crazy 48 hours, Benny, and this weekend is not going to be easy for the Biden campaign.
So you're saying that this may come down to this weekend. And I want to get, guys, I want to get Charlie's most recent report up talking about sort of like the mafia family the Gestapo, like mafia family that must come to bear on Joe Biden to get him to step down. So talk me through this weekend, what's at stake, and more importantly, how that ties into your past reporting.
Yeah, right now the big four are, they have to be quietly talking behind the scenes if it's time for Joe to go. And so what really depends is whether Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi kind of go to their constituents, go to all their candidates running and be like, hey, how bad was this? Is this going to affect your race? And that's when they can sort of conclude, make the decision, and go to Joe Biden and say, hey, look, it was just a one-off debate. Everyone's still energized. Or they say the opposite. That was devastating. That was historically bad, and it's time to move on. So keep an eye on those two. We already know that Biden doesn't really respect the Clintons. He doesn't really respect the Obamas. Those two famously kept trying to push him off the national stage when he was trying to run his own campaign. And so he doesn't necessarily respect their opinion. But if all four, including Pelosi and Schumer, come to him, or if it's not him, it's Jill, they have to go to Jill and say, look, we can't go any further. It's time for Joe to go. That's what's going to finally make this thing happen.
Wow. So you have a situation where Joe Biden is saying today, his campaign, not going to drop out. What are you talking about? We can't wait for the next debate. We won this debate. Everyone be damned. We won it, right? Is what they're tweeting from the DNC Twitter account. And it seems delusional. Yet you kind of, you watched Jill Biden last night. Many people are looking at the way that Jill Biden behaved, and we're saying, wait a second, like, she's clearly the one who's keeping all of this rolling here. Like, she was talking to Joe Biden like he was a little 3-year-old and dragging him around by the hand. Joe Biden could barely get down the stage. This teeny step on the CNN stage, he had like major difficulties with that. She's dragging him to Waffle House at like midnight, which is, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how the Secret Service approved of that. Waffle House, very scary at midnight. Yet it seems like there would be such a firewall put up, right? They just seem so entrenched. Even if like Chuck Schumer came in and is like, this is bad. Like, is that really going to move the Bidens?
Yes, they're very stubborn. Even Biden's staff is stubborn. They feel like they've been underestimated by the elites at every turn. So they might, with Joe Biden currently leading the party and the people surrounding him also defiant, then we might be in for a real Democratic civil war here. This is something that I talked about in my book about Kamala Harris. If Joe Biden can't make it to the finish line, then the party will erupt in a civil war with each donor, each politician, all trying to pivot and position themselves for who should be the next president, who should replace Joe Biden. This is the worst case scenario from the debate that they could expect. And wow, looking at it right now, Kamala Harris has never been closer to the White House, to ascending the presidency and being the 45th president of the United States.
That's remarkable. Kamala Harris was on TV last night, and now it begins to maybe click a little bit. So you have Jen Psaki last night being like, she said this live. She goes, right. Who the hell booked Kamala? Like, this is a very bad thing if you have the vice president having to come on here and flack. And Kamala was all over. She was on CNN for 10 minutes. She was on CNN. It's a long interview. And then she was on MSNBC for 3.5 minutes.
And ABC News. And there was a very clear sign that Kamala and her people wanted to get her face out on television that say, hey, stop looking at Gavin Newsom, who's out there parading around in front of CNN. We need Kamala on CNN, and we need to shut that down.
Yeah. So what's the background there? So that's Kamala angling.
Definitely Kamala. It's a sign of Kamala angling. Look, her people are furious, are sick of seeing Gavin Newsom on TV being a better defender of the president than she is. And she hates to see that. So I was not surprised to see the Biden campaign push her forward. And you can bet that Kamala Harris was up there demanding that they put her up on screen that night.
Maybe not a smart idea. We have a short clip here of Kamala Harris on CNN where I don't think she was used to having somebody push back on her ever so lightly, right? She got just very, feather dusted by Anderson Cooper, but she lost it, bro. Like, she snapped and started screaming at Anderson Cooper. Do we have this as a play beside? Let's rock and roll on this clip. Just a really short one, Charlie. But you got to see this. Really, really painful.
He was a very different person on the stage 4 years ago when you debated him. You must, I mean, that's certainly true, is it not?
Anderson, the point has to be performance in terms of what a president does. A
Right,
president who
but that is
incites
what's
an
scary for
insurrection
people
against the
watching this.
Capitol. No, but I got the point that you're making about a 1.5 hour debate tonight.
Argumentative.
I'm
Angry.
talking about 3.5 years of performance in work that has been historic.
But is
whether
that
it be
the man
infrastructure,
who we
the
saw
former
on the
guy, the
stage
other
tonight?
guy,
Is that the
the other
person
guy
you
on
see
the
in
debate
meetings every day?
stage, the person that you saw on the debate stage that has for the last 3.5 years, up until today.
Up until today, Charlie. Up until today.
Whoa.
English, do you speak it?
What an admission.
He's been great until today. Great job, Colin. Really, she did such an incredible job representing.
Remember that great debater that you called a racist just 4 years ago?
Okay, so this is very interesting. As people run through the gambit, they're saying you really would have to convince Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to step aside because Kamala Harris would do horribly against Donald Trump. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I just talked to a well-connected Democratic source today, just being like, is it Kamala's turn? And honestly, they said, you know what? As bad as that debate was, it might be better to keep Joe Biden in instead of Kamala Harris. That's how Democrats feel about Kamala Harris. They've seen the polling. They know it's a bad idea to try to replace Biden with Kamala Harris to go against Trump, in spite of everything that they're facing this morning.
Wow. So based on the fact that you are one of the best source reporters on this topic, what would be your betting odds about the switcheroo? Maybe you've seen the market, the betting predicted markets this morning, where Joe Biden's collapsing, and the chances of Joe Biden being swapped out are now at like 50%. So where would you place your hedge going forward through to November? Do you believe they will actually swap him out?
I really think that they're going to just pray for the 4th of July holiday. I think they want everybody to go away, forget about this debate, think about freedom, think about America, and come back to the table that maybe our democracy is more important than Joe Biden's bad debate performance. It's clear that Biden is about to make a speech defending his performance and to reassert himself on the stage. And Democrats are listening intently to see how that goes. If he botches that, wow, this thing could be over in 24 hours. But I think most Democrats are really praying for a nice 4th of July week and some time to think it over before they're ready to pull the trigger.
Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is Charlie Spearing at the Daily Mail who would be the one to write the article if anything were to happen. He's sort of had his finger on the pulse here perfectly. And he was mocked and derided just a couple weeks ago for writing about this. And now every single show is leading with his article. So Charlie's one of those guys that you got to follow. Here's his X account and his byline. Ladies and gentlemen, get on over there. Also, Amateur Hour, his book on sale now. This guy's been calling it for a while. Get in there.
Thanks so much, Benny.
Godspeed, Charlie. Ooh, man. Mika, everyone's calm here. It's so good. Everyone's calm. Shut up. Okay? You're the one who's yelling, Mika. Oh, it's wonderful. Oh, you just smell. You can smell it. You can smell it. They're just panicking. They're panicking. Okay, one more panic clip. We have so many loaded. Did we tell you that Democrats are saying they want to jump off a bridge? It's like saying there's literal clips of Democrats saying they wish to jump off. Let's play this one more time. It's like a 10-second clip. The Democrats are saying that after Joe Biden's debate performance, it would be better to just not exist anymore. Watch.
He said that when that happened, the entire room was just completely silent and in shock, and that this member's own reaction was that he wanted to jump off of a bridge.
Oh, the salt. It fills my cup, and it is so tasty, and it's so delicious. Ladies and gentlemen, there's this lady who I really don't like. Her name's Claire McCaskill. Maybe you're from Missouri and you remember when this wretch represented you. And she's this far left-wing, psychotic, deeply unimpressive, low IQ Democrat. And she represented this dark red state of Missouri. And it's nice to see nature healing. Now Missouri is represented by incredible members of Congress and in the Senate, obviously, Josh Hawley and Eric Schmidt, two of our favorites. But Claire McCaskill still gets to trot out and go on MSNBC as an expert. And she has to be a little advisor. You know, she sat around in the Senate for a few years, and people look at her as sort of this like bellwether because she's from a red state, all right? But she's a Democrat. So anyway, she hasn't been in power in like a decade or more. She was beat like really badly. And Claire McCaskill was on TV last night, and this is probably the harshest dagger ever because she's like a spokesperson for Joe Biden. You know, her job is to flack, and she said that. She's like, my job is to be here and to like say nice things about Joe Biden. But then
the hard and heartbreaking part. I have been a surrogate for some presidential candidates in my time. I know what the job is after a debate of a surrogate. I've never wanted to be a surrogate more than I do right now. Because when you're a surrogate, you have to focus on the positives. But I have said very clearly and very plainly on this network, and my job now is to be really honest. Joe Biden had one thing he had to do tonight, and he didn't do it. He had one thing he had to accomplish, and that was reassure America that he was up to the job at his age. And he failed at that tonight. Now, does that mean that my phone blowing up with senators and campaign operatives and donors, big donors from all over the country, does that mean that Joe Biden is not going to be the candidate? I don't know that. I think we'll know a lot more in a few weeks.
Joe Biden didn't do his job. There's so much good energy, so many good vibes this morning. And before we get to our Ask Benny Anything segment of the show, I did want to show you this article as an answer to prayer, ladies and gentlemen. As the Supreme Court this decision from the Supreme Court, the way it's shaking out, there may be hundreds of J6 political prisoners that just walk free today inside the Supreme Court's decision that could lop years off of sentences for Capitol rioters. The U.S. Supreme Court is expected to decide on the fate of 350 people involved in the charges of obstruction of trespassing around the U.S. Capitol building, while members of the House and the Senate were certifying the vote. In the case, Fisher versus the United States, which was just decided in favor of Fisher, is centered around the use of this section enacted in the aftermath of the Enron scandal. It's so weird. And witness tampering. Although the law makes it a crime to otherwise obstruct, influence, or impede any official proceeding. Again, this is insane. This is the obstruction of an official proceeding, like what the left does every second of every day, right? Right. The outcome will, like, how many times do left-wing orcs take over streets, Capitol buildings, subway cars, universities, highways, national parks? How many times, like, you are obstructing an official proceeding when you do that. There is an official, no matter where you are, there is an official, and they are proceeding, and you are obstructing that. Every single one of them should be thrown into, it's like, careful what you wish for. It's so animalistic. It's so low IQ, right? Like the way that like a low IQ, like just dumb creature acts, where it just like acts on its immediate instinct. The left's immediate instinct is power right now. That's why they got rid of the filibuster, right? For the judicial. Like Harry Reid is this dude. You might remember he was in charge of the Senate, and he gets rid of the filibuster for Supreme Court justices. And Mitch McConnell, not fans of Mitch McConnell, obviously very happy that he's going into retirement. But Mitch McConnell said a very true thing. He said, you're going to regret this, dude. So you're going to regret it really bad. And then Mitch McConnell gets through 3 Trump Supreme Court judges, which is why we have this ruling today. So just taking a moment on this ruling and this outcome. By the way, can I get Jonathan Turley back up too? We sent a Jonathan Turley tweet thread on this, and I wanted to get to that because he's one of my favorite legal scholars and experts. And can we just resurface that? Because I want to cover this. It's very hard because this happened live, and so I want to make sure that you understand how important this is and what an answer to prayer this is, actually, before we get to our verse of the day. This is such an answer to prayer. The outcome will certainly affect the case against Donald Trump. Trump, the presumptive Republican nominee, was indicted on 4 counts, including 2 that have to do with this subsection. So now half of Donald Trump's Jack Smith account is gone. You realize what just happened? How big this is? Wild. So now half of like what Jack Smith's brought against Donald Trump is poof, it's gone. It's incredible. So now it looks like from the court, there's going to be some huge changes in the impacts of these charges. So apparently, J6ers could potentially walk free today. Conservatives long suspected that the use of 1512 against Capitol rioters was more than coordinated but nefarious, and that Attorney General Merrick Garland and his team spent hours gaming out how a law designed to tackle white-collar fraud could apply to the attack. That's right. In testimony Tuesday during a House Judicial Committee hearing, a Republican Congressman Thomas Massey asked Garland, "Is your office preparing to drop charges of more than 350 January 6ers on 1512C and release dozens from prison on that count if the Supreme Court this month reverses the statute?" Garland responded with, "Whatever the court rules, we will act appropriately. I don't answer hypotheticals. We'll wait and see." So what does acting appropriately mean? Does it mean that these individuals, they should likely walk free? That's what should happen. Jonathan Turley, on the actual ruling itself. So Jonathan Turley, Roberts of all people, writes for the majority. Incredible. John Roberts of all people. A major loss for the Biden administration, says Turley. The court rules that novel interpretation would criminalize broad swath of prosaic conduct, exposing activists and lobbyists alike to decades in prison. There's a huge win for Trump as well, as it knocks off a substantial part of the Jack Smith case against Trump and knocks out hundreds of convictions. Obviously, there were other charges like trespass that will not be impacted. However, this hits hundreds of cases. Those cases must now be reviewed on just the underlying convictions, but the sentencing, it will not impact those cases which only went forward on trespass, which are also numbers in the hundreds. For Trump, this rips the wings off the plane that Jack Smith has been trying to take off in D.C. In any ordinary case, this would be a superseding indictment. Smith may try and go forward with the remaining counts. However, it's hard to see how the indictment holds together. So this may, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been praying, this is the answer to your prayers. When it comes to Donald Trump, when it comes to these proceedings, when it comes to J6ers, and the brutality that has been applied to them, it's been so hard to watch. It's made me so angry. And it's one of the main reasons that I'm supporting Donald Trump. One of the main reasons I'm supporting Donald Trump is because the unequal application of the law, my family was physically in danger. People like threw rocks at me and my children as I was walking down the street in DC, like members of Antifa. I saw members of Antifa physically try and kill my friend, Jack Posobiec, in a famous moment where Jack was standing there. They recognized him and they turned on him. They tried to kill him. I watched it. Tried to intervene, but the cops pushed me back. Photos of it on my phone. I mean, I see these people. These people were bloodthirsty, ravenous orcs rolling through the city, and none of them went to prison. Nothing happened to them. Nothing. And then they treat J6ers like this. The vast preponderance, and I've said this, and I'll say it again. Don't need to say it again, but I'll say it again. Punch a cop, go to jail. Don't care if you're wearing black bloc or red hat. Punch a cop, go to jail. Don't hit cops. Don't break windows. Don't riot. All right? Okay, fine. Don't damage property. I also don't like it when Antifa went and desecrated national monuments, burned the White House down. But where's the charges? They burned the White House down. They burned a building at the White House down. Donald Trump had to be taken into a secure bunker because they were this close to breaching the White House with the intent of killing Donald Trump. Where are the charges for them? Where? They were all dropped. They were all dropped on free speech grounds. Oh, there's free speech. Free speech. They want to kill Trump. They want to kill the president. That's your insurrection. That's the real insurrection. Don't mean to go on a tangent here, but it's true. And it's made me crazy. It's made me crazy. Watching that up close will change a man. It's part of the reason why I left DC. I couldn't stand being there any longer. Couldn't stand it. I lived there for 15 years, had a house, had a decent little life. My wife and I had a newborn child, and we said, we are getting out of here. Like, this place has gone insane. It was like living in like a Maoist revolution, right? Where if you were the enemy of the state, like you know, camps for you, right? And if you were a servant of the state, then you could just commit crimes with total impunity and total protection. It was a Maoist revolution. These people, they're Marxists. They call them Marxists, actual Marxists. Yeah. So anyway, we move on, ladies and gentlemen, and we pray, and we keep close at heart, and we do not lose faith or hope, and good things have happened. This has been the best news cycle. This has been the best 12-hour news cycle in years. Okay? So savor it. Here we go. Ask Benny anything. Why is nobody mentioning Susan Rice as a Biden replacement? Box checked, Obamaite, smart woman, and guts, says Bud Gardner. Well, Bud, I think you're right, with one small exception based on my knowledge of DC. There's this group of people in DC that really like being behind the scenes. Susan Rice is one of those people. She is really smart and deeply duplicitous. Susan Rice was just recently in the headlines. This is Barack Obama's national security advisor. And these people are so creepy and weird. And she was recently in the news because she was coordinating with Mark Milley, of all people, before January 6th. Mark Milley was going and having all these little secret meetings with her. What the hell is that about, right? Anyway, you know, makes your skin crawl. But a lot of these people, much like, you know, the parasites that they are, you know, they want to operate in darkness. They want to operate outside of the light, the searing light. It burns their skin. And Susan Rice comes off to me as one of those like behind the scenes people that really like having the cloak and the dagger and getting things done without like the issue of having all these cameras and stuff on you, right? You can get it done in the back room. What does Barack Obama say? If I could have a president with an earpiece and I'm in sweats and I'm in my basement, that's the perfect presidency for me. The president literally has an earpiece in. And all last night, Joe Biden's touching his ear. All last night, Joe Biden, the entire time. Did you notice that? Just saying. I'm just saying. Just saying. Okay. So anyway, Bud, thank you for the question. Cynthia says, Benny, I heard this morning that Trump has chosen Doug Burgum as VP. If you go to TrumpBurgum.com, it goes to President Trump's donation page. Do you know if this is true? Well, let's do it. Go to TrumpBurgum.com. I can pop that up. Let's give it a shot and see. Now, there are probably plenty of people who... So was that the redirect? Was that a redirect for the website? Okay. You know, there's plenty of people that can like buy up domains and do redirects and stuff like that. Like maybe you can try other iterations. Everyone says that Doug Burgum is in the running, right? And it is in the finalists. I have not been impressed by Doug Burgum. Maybe it's just me. It's about addition, not subtraction when it comes to national politics. And I'm not sure what Doug Burgum really brings to the table. Certainly not name ID. Nobody really knows anything about him. I guess he's successful in his own right. I'm not trying to knock the guy. I have nothing against him. I've never met him. But I just don't see the value it brings to the ticket. I guess you got Trump at the top of the ticket. So that, you know, that brings its own value, I suppose. But Doug Burgum goes on and does these TV hits and everyone's like, you know, bored to tears. And I'm sorry, maybe that makes me, I'm superficial like that. But Trump is just so dynamic, and it'd be nice to see him sort of paired with somebody that can match that energy. It's why I was pushing so hard for Vivek. That's why I was pushing so hard for Vivek. I wanted that ticket so badly. Selfishly, right? Because I like Vivek a lot. He's a friend of the show. But here we are. Does this mean that it's Doug Burgum? I don't think so, Cynthia. I'm not sure. Donald Trump says in his own mind, he's made up his mind. That's what Donald Trump just said this weekend. He's made up his mind. But, that's all he said. So I guess we'll wait and see, right? Reporting was that Trump would make that announcement before the debate, but that didn't happen. So we'll wait and see. Thank you for your question, Cynthia. Robin Hilton says, I have a great idea for a meme. Joe Biden riding a fence back and forth with the regular Democrats and their ideas on one side and the progressive Democrats and their issues on the other side, like Israel, Ukraine, climate change, etc. Dirty little secret, Robin, about Joe Biden. It's a dirty little secret about Joe Biden. I'm so glad that you asked this question. Joe Biden is, and if you follow his career, right, if you really go back into the archives and see what the guy has been doing since the 70s, using his kids as props when they were in the hospital. I mean, he's a deeply immoral person. He has no moral sense. His only instinct is self-preservation and power and largesse unto himself. Joe Biden is elected in a backwater, okay? Delaware is just a backwater. I'm sorry. I apologize. If you're from there, my wife's family is from there. Many members of my wife's family still live there. But it is a teeny little state that can be run like in a completely corrupt way. You can win your Senate seat with 100,000 votes. That's all you need. And all you have to do is have muscle to go through and pull those boxes. So Joe Biden has effectively used that muscle to get elected from that state for the better part of the last 4 decades. He's not an intelligent man. That's very clear. He has below average intelligence. Joe Biden has below average, gifted intelligence. He's never been smart. He's never been somebody that really knows what he's. This is why he gets clowned by Clarence Thomas and stuff during these Senate confirmation hearings. He's always been somebody who, again, is you feel sorry for him in a way because he's just dumb. But he figured out how to rig a system, how to get elected inside of a teeny little, the smallest, the state of Delaware, one of the smallest states. He figured out how to build a little machine that just delivered for him. And then he used his proximity to Washington to create enormous amounts of largesse for his family, greed and corruption for his family. And never once did he pause and think about how immoral that is. Or think about why does Hunter Biden and Jim Biden and all of his stupid grandkids, I'm sorry to talk about it that way, but you go and you track their careers and they're all tracking just like Hunter Biden, right? These dirty little deals in these dirty little countries that are just buying access to the White House. And it should be completely criminal. And they're all cashing in on this guy's name. And, the more you actually study Joe Biden, the more you understand he is a morally repulsive human being. And the final thing I'll say on this is that all you need to do is look at the fact that Joe Biden, whenever it's convenient, uses stolen valor. Just last night, he said his son died in Iraq. Again, the 400th time that he's repeated the lie that his son died in Iraq. So stolen valor, which is, is there a more despicable thing you can do than that? Than to steal the honor from a dead American service member? But that is what Joe Biden does when he makes claims like that. And then 2, he defies his own church. So he did this creepy thing where he did this weird head noggin bump with the Pope. And so he's he does this thing where he tries to rub up against the Pope. It's just super weird. Really creepy, actually. But then he defies his church at every turn. The Catholic Church is pro-life. And he just spits in their face. And he did so last night, advocating for unlimited and never-ending abortion. And he just spits in the face of his own church. How do you do that? What kind of a person can do that? It's a morally repugnant, total and complete flexibility on your values and an inability to defend or really stand up for anything. If you can't stand up for your faith, for your church, for your immortal soul, right? That's going to burn in hell or live forever in heaven. If you don't have the instinct to do that, you're dumb. You're just a dumb person. Okay? And Joe Biden is a dumb person. He's a deeply immoral, cretinous person. We don't have time right now to get into all of it, but we talk about it regularly on the show. The moral fabric of Joe Biden is despicable. And so, yeah, this is why Joe Biden does ride the fence, Robin. And Joe Biden has only ever migrated his positions, never once took a stand for anything, only ever migrated his positions into what is fashionable for the current Democratic Party. So your question is completely correct. Completely correct and well stated. I guess that ties in very nicely to our verse of the day. Here we go. Galatians 6:2. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. Part of the reason why I'm upset about not live streaming last night was that I love the community that we create here. The community that is created on the show allows for all of us to celebrate together and gather together and jump in the chat and roll with it. It's awesome. And it's it's something that I really cherish. I think that everyone has good days and bad days. And some days you guys carry my burdens and the burdens of this show. You know, it's inspiring and it's fun to be able to just to be able to get out and create a community. And I'm sure there are people in the chat that are uplifted every single day, right? By finding community here. And that's part of why we do this. Carry each other's burdens and you'll have a good life. And so that's what we're doing here in the Benny Brigade, in the Salty Army, in celebrating moments like this. And it is a beautiful time for celebration here in the greatest country on earth. You should be walking on air today, as am I. And you should say, wow, our work is actually paying off. Whether it's Tractor Supply going back on apologizing for going woke and firing their entire DEI like they did yesterday. It's incredible. Or whether it's Donald Trump's debate, or whether it's the victories this morning at the Supreme Court. God's got us, okay? God's got us, and all we need to do is be the righteous man and woman that he calls for. Remember, he'll save the whole nation. He'll save the whole city. They'll save Sodom. Oh, man. We do live in modern-day Sodom, don't we? They'll save Sodom if you can find the angel, a good man or a good woman. They'll save the whole city. And so be that good man and be that good woman and march with me, okay? And then we'll save this place. It's been written. We'll save this place. We know it. The victory is ours. So let's march together. It's your boy Benny. Have a great weekend. Okay. Klein says he wants to play the meme. Let's do it. Have a great weekend in this, the most wonderful nation on earth. Here's a meme to send you off.
Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.